morning and welcome to Rising. We have, of course, a great show for you today. It is Monday morning. We're back from a fun-filled weekend.
Snowy-filled weekend.
Snow-ish. There's some snow. What is wrong with people?
Look at that cutaway. It's serious snow. It's another snow. Blizzard in New York.
It's not sticking to the roads, though. So
Look at that stick. I guess the roads, yes.
The grassy parts it's sticking to. But they canceled school, again, in Arlington and Alexandria, or some of those places.
And so did Mom Donnie, who was anti-canceling at the last huge snowstorm. He called
they're getting a huge snowstorm in New York. But
yes.
Here, we're getting a little itty-bitty baby snowstorm. And people need to...
You know when you were a kid that you wanted the cancellation, so I don't know why you're acting
Well, yeah, but now I'm an adult, and I want kids to go to school like they should. But speaking of winter activities, we should celebrate the hockey team, right? That was a big success over the weekend.
You're going to have to break... I don't know what...
Oh, my God, this is a big deal.
Oh, I was supposed to watch the Olympics this weekend. Okay,
I can't believe I know more about this than you do.
Yeah, I can't believe you. Break it down.
Jack Hughes, you didn't see any of this on social media? Amazing victory for the Olympic U.S.
Well, go Team USA.
So we're very excited about that. Congratulations to them.
Coming up on Rising, violence is erupting in Mexico. Did you see it after the country took out the powerful leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel? And White House says that the U.S. provided intelligence support for the mission.
Plus, the Secret Service shot and killed an armed man who entered a secure Mar-a-Lago perimeter.
And the Supreme Court delivered a landmark ruling against some of President Trump's tariffs. But first, Robby, what is on your radar today?
Well, Senator Bernie Sanders has been quite busy. He joined Representative Ro Khanna for a tour of Silicon Valley, meeting with tech industry leaders who they claim are about to be responsible for, quote, the most dangerous moment in the modern history of the world. That is a direct quote from Sanders. You see, Sanders, and to an extent Khanna, want to slow the pace of technological development in the U.S. because they think AI is bad, and they think people making money off AI is bad. For Sanders, all the gains of increased technology are going to come at the expense of working people. That's the Marxist socialist viewpoint. Technological innovation hurts the little guys. It's also completely wrong. Actually, we know that technological innovation improves living standards and makes everyone wealthier. Not just the richest 1%, but all of us. Yes, the tech CEOs are about to make a lot of money off AI. We're also going to get self-driving cars, cheaper electronic goods, renewable energy sources, more accurate medical diagnoses, huge advances in medical care overall, sustainable food sources, and on and on and on. The future is now. Unless we regulate ourselves so that we fall behind enemy nations like China that would use tech to harm us. As part of his tour of Silicon Valley, Sanders made an appearance at Stanford University, where he fielded a very perceptive question from a student or an audience participant. Why is it, that person asked, that the U.S. is responsible for so much more technological innovation that the U.S. is than Europe? Here's how Sanders responded.
I'm asking you to explain not why we have inequality, but why we've had so much growth over the last 2 decades.
Because we have very smart people who have been incentivized, who have worked very hard. But you know what? In most European countries, all people have health care as a human right. In most European countries, it doesn't cost $80,000 a year to go to college.
In other words, Sanders went right back to his same old shtick. Look, Europe definitely has some advantages. The weather sure is nice in Sicily in the summer, take it from me. But just because they have universal health care coverage, it does not make the medical care good. Just because they provide tuition does not mean their colleges are good. Yes, in Europe, the government gives you a lot of things for free, though free just means paid for by extremely, extremely high taxes, which are 60% or more in some European countries. And so the trade-off is people don't want to work as much. They certainly don't want to get rich creating new and exciting technologies when the government is just going to come in and confiscate half of their income. Moreover, the regulatory environment there is some brutally punishing. And that tech people know they have to go elsewhere to the U.S. to make things work at all. Let's listen to a little bit more of what Sanders had to say.
The point is, I understand the argument. If we don't have any regulation and you give tax breaks to these large companies, they will create these technologies. But what the point of this evening, this afternoon, is to say that while these technologies can be very useful, they will not be useful unless we have a degree of control over what these guys are doing. So it's not just technology for the sake of technology. It's technology to improve human life.
Sanders said we should have a degree of control over what the tech CEOs are building. And that sounds nice, but let's be clear on something. Who is the we there? Is it we the people? Is it we the bureaucrats? Because again, in Europe, we, the government, tells tech what to do, which is why there's no Silicon Valley in Europe and never will be. It's why tech people like Elon Musk and Pavel Durov are at odds with the governments of Europe, which take legal action to stop their companies from flourishing. Now, even if you don't fully trust Mark Zuckerberg or Sam Altman, the relevant question is, do you trust government bureaucrats more? Do you trust them to strike the balance correctly, to regulate without stifling? I sure don't. I don't think we can even trust Bernie Sanders on this. Sanders has called for a moratorium on new data centers, which we desperately need if we're going to stay competitive on AI. But Sanders thinks, you know what? Sounds too risky. Let's shut it all down. But falling behind China means taking an even bigger risk. It means we risk becoming like Europe, where tech goes to die. Not even Kana supports a data center moratorium, if you want to know just how nutty that particular idea is. Now, I salute that Stanford student for asking Sanders the question he won't answer. Why is Silicon Valley in the US and not in Europe? It's government regulatory policy. That's the reason why. And if Sanders gets his way, he'll drive the tech across the sea just as assuredly as California's insane new tax policies are exiling tech folks to Florida.
So I'm a supporter of new technology and advancement of tech, but I think that your blanket support is the part that really bothers me. The fact that you really
Blanket support, Sanders is blanket opposition.
Well, this is the thing. I think when you're talking about the data centers, like there's still a lot of research being done on how they impact the community. So I know there's a conversation around there's a conversation around the water usage. Several different studies. We're not going to cite all of them, but they have different information about how they might be affecting it and people's electric bills in the direct vicinity and the environment as a whole. So we still need to see how these affect things. So having oversight is not a bad thing to me. On the flip side of the actual tech being like the wild, wild west, I think Bernie Sanders is asking the noble questions. Who's in charge of this? Who makes the decisions? Who's this going to benefit? And who's getting left out of the equation by the fast-moving nature of technology and AI? And that's what Congress is literally supposed to do. So yes, Bernie Sanders could be a grandpa who's outdated in certain ways of thinking, but you need certain people like that within Congress mixed with younger people to say, okay, how do we review this and make sure that the
mixed with younger people? It's all old people.
There's some young. AOC is young. We have a young.
Well, she's got the same stupid ideas that he does. This is where I believe the government would only come in and stop something if there is persuasive evidence of harm, not a we don't know, so let's just shut it down to be safe. Because that's not safety, because that's holding us back. The data centers, it's a myth that they use a lot of electricity, or they're driving up electric. They obviously use a lot of electricity, but
no,
they're driving
Facebook
up
said that it would do its best to make sure communities around data centers are not impacted by the bill.
They're not.
Take on more of the. That means that it was driving them up, and if they're not intentionally taking on the costs.
And the water, we have plenty of water, so it's not really a problem. This is a myth. It is actually, it's a form of bigotry against the data centers. It's a new ism, anti-data center-ism. It's just stupidity.
So I was looking into this, and you frame regulation as like an enemy of innovation. So I was like, how did we develop Silicon Valley? And it's important to know that Silicon Valley really got a lot of its financial support in the beginning from massive government contracts. It got support from defense contracts, public research funding, even Stanford University grants that went to helping the government move forward in things like DARPA. Now, DARPA is an early funded infrastructure program that built out things like the internet, GPS. This is all funded by the government in the beginning. And so because I did this deep dive, it's like, well, the government supported the now advanced...
Contracts are not... That's government contracts is not like a like the people... The government needs work done.
Right.
It hires private entities to do the work.
But these foundational technologies help build what all platforms are pretty much using, like the GPS, the TomTom. Like we were using them in government official like capacities and helping put money there so they can be developed properly by people from Stanford University. And then they turn into the, alongside companies like at the time, whatever was Meta. And here we are using them throughout multiple companies. So when you work alongside the government, perhaps that'll be more incentive to not only be regulated, but to make sure that we are advancing and have the funding to advance, supported by our government.
They don't need funding from the big tech companies right now. They don't need funding from the government. They do contract with the government, but they don't need.
They need cooperation, though.
They need
in order to.
They need to be left alone. They need to be
They
not
need
hurt
cooperation. That's
by
why.
punitive
How much did we say
regulation,
Facebook
the
and
kind
Meta is?
that Sanders wants.
And Meta is spending what, 65 billion, I think, million on the next election, or on lobbying specifically about AI. That was the story last week.
Yeah, to stop them from strangling the AI baby in the crib.
But they need cooperation. Then you
Right?
can't
They need
just
the
do it
government to leave
without
them
government.
alone. They're not asking for the government to do anything for them. They're just saying, do not stop us from building the power centers to power this great technology that's going to make all of our lives better.
And everybody just
leave
doesn't
us
have any
alone.
water. Don't worry about it.
Huh?
Because these power centers are going up
oh
all
my
over the
God.
place. No, everybody have no drinking water.
Nonsense.
Violence across Mexico over the weekend after the Mexican military took out one of the most notorious drug kingpins in the country. How the U.S. is responding. We'll be right back.